Hello everybody, welcome back. We are doing some VR tutorials for buttonless gaze input. So if you are interested in making apps for Android using Unity, this is the series for you. In this particular episode, we are making a node manager, I guess, a placement manager. So in our previous video, we learned how to pick up a ball and then drop it, and now we want to be able to choose between multiple nodes. Okay, so this is what it should look like when it's all done. Okay, so before we get started, make sure you guys like and subscribe and tell your friends. All right, guys, let's jump in. Of course, like I said in our last video, we learned how to pick up a ball and drop it. So here we go. We've got the ball. It's in our hand, our little Minecraft hand, and then we drop it over here. If we disable the gravity, which we use to put it here, then the ball will just snap to that location. Okay, if you want to check out more of that, and check out the last video. But I want to get started, so let us jump in and start chopping things down. We are getting rid of everything that we've done so far, for most of everything, but I want to I think I'm going to keep my little Minecraft hand. I'm becoming fond of it. So, Minecraft hand. There we go. It has its own name now. Okay. And might as well give it a, there we go. We'll call it, there we go. Nice. Okay. There we go. The one thing that we need to do before we do anything else is take the radial gaze timer and give it to my hand. The reason for this is that in order for this all to work, we need to be able to have our radial gaze timer and then our appropriate script in on the same object. What that means is that whether it's on my hand or a node, it's going to have two things. It's going to have the radial gaze timer and then the holding or dropping. Speaking of holding and dropping, we are actually going to blend these two scripts together to make one. So let's go ahead and right click, create C# script, and we're going to call this the node master. Excellent. All right, let's jump in here and make this thing real quick. This will be a good refresher. We will delete both of these because we don't need them. All right, so our first thing is a public rigid body. There we go. And this one obviously is the ball because, well, we need to manipulate our ball. And then we need a transform. This transform is not going to be my hand or the node. It's just going to be called the holder because, well, I could be holding it in my hand or I could be holding it on a node. And then, of course, we will need one final game object, and this will be all the nodes. Okay. Our first public void is going to be in my hands. Okay, because that's when we know we're holding the ball. Okay, and we are going to do the ball dot transform dot parent equals the holder dot transform. Okay. The next line will be the ball dot transform dot locale position equals the holder dot transform dot local position. Okay. Now, that basically is the same as our holding script, so just to make sure we got everything okay, let's open that up. The holding script, transforming the parent and then transforming the local position. Excellent. And over here we've got our dropping script, which is the nullification of the parent and then a local positioning. And then, of course, we skip the parenting because, you know, it just doesn't work. And, of course, we won't be using gravity because, well, we want these to snap to the nodes themselves. All right, so let's go back to the node master and make sure we've got these two lines in there. So we are going to need public void on the nodes. Oops. Whoa, 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 whoa. On the nodes. Okay. The ball dot transform dot parent equals null. Okay. And then the ball dot transform dot local position equals the holder. Sorry, the holder. Sometimes I type too fast. Local position. Okay. So there we go. We've got our parenting for the hand, and then we've got the nullification for when it's placed on a node. Now, you're probably wondering what all this node business is. All the nodes are going to be where all of our hit states are going to be. So this might not make sense yet, but what we're going to do is do all the nodes dot set active to be true. Okay, so when we hold the ball in our hands, we want all the nodes that, we want the nodes to be active. But we don't want them active right at first, because what would happen then is that we'd be able to hover over them and they would do things that we don't want them to do. So all the nodes dot set active. In this one it's going to be false, because if we are actually holding the ball on a node, we don't want another node to be able to be picked up, because, well, that's just not a good idea. Why did I do that? Okay, there we go. And good. Okay. Sorry, like things to be a little neat. Okay, so I don't usually do a whole lot of commenting, but let's go ahead and comment this just for future reference. The old holding script, and this one is the old dropping script. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. So we've got both of our holding and our dropping scripts brought over into this one node master. Excellent. Okay, go ahead and save this. Now we need to take a look at our radial gaze timer. Okay, so the radial gaze timer has there we go. The radial gaze timer has this variable called stuff to do. Now, originally we had some script butlers, some empty game objects that just held a script. All right, and that was either the holding script butler or the dropping script butler. We are doing away with that. We don't want those. We do want the node master. So go to my hands, drop the node master into my hands, and then load the node master up. So the ball is Pepito, as always. The holder, in this case, is my hands, and all the nodes doesn't exist yet, so we're not going to worry about that. However, this stuff to do, the stuff to do, obviously, the stuff to do was activate the script butler. Now the stuff to do is access the node master. So we're going to drag my hands over here, and there we go. Okay, we got a couple more things we need to do while we're here before we jump back into the code. So go to Pepito, which has the event trigger. Come down here and you will notice that even though we had this all filled out last episode, it's all empty. And the reason for that is because we moved the radial gaze timer from player to my hands. So now my hands, being the ones that are holding the radial gaze timer, need to be the focus of this event trigger. Okay, there we go. My hands, my hands, my hands. And then for this one, the event trigger enter, we are going to say radial gaze timer bool enabled. Make sure it's checked. That will enable the radial gaze timer, and when the gaze timer finishes, it will do its hullabaloo. So if you look away from the gaze timer, obviously you want to reset your timer to 0 and also disable the timer. Okay, So that way, if you look away, it resets, disables itself, and then when you look, it re-enables itself. So that is good. That's a good thing. All right. So we have diminished our radial gaze timer script's usefulness of the stuff to do by forcing it into itself. But we still need to modify the script. So right now, the stuff to do, that's all good. So we're going to come down here. And like I said, we don't need to use setActive anymore because we're not activating a game object. We're simply trying to access the code that is in the script, which is attached to this object. So we want to do get component, and we want the name of the script that's on there. Obviously, that is the node master. Okay. And then whenever you're doing this kind of get component stuff, you got to make sure you put those weird parentheses in there. Not sure. And then we want to call the name of the subroutine or function, whatever you want to call it, that we want to use. So in this case, it's in my hands. So we want it to be in my hands. There we go. Add your little parentheses for whatever reason. And there we go. The stuff to do .get component, the node master in my hands. We would also need one for the nodes themselves, but we're not there yet. So let's go ahead and leave this alone. We will need to test whether or not we can actually pick this object up yet. Okay, so we've got that. We've got, let's see, everything is good. All right, so all of our variables are filled out except for all the nodes, which isn't useful yet. Let's test this. Hopefully we've got everything. Okay, that works. We can acquire the ball again. Excellent. All right, so now we need to make a place to put the ball. So this is going to be our node system. Click out here into the empty area and create an empty. This one is going to be called, obviously, all the nodes. And for the sake of cleanliness, zero out those transforms. All right, right-click on all the nodes, create another empty. The transforms should be at 0, but if there aren't, zero them. And we're going to call this the hitbox. Okay, and that is very important because this hitbox is going to be just like my hands. So we're going to need to give it the radial gaze timer and the node master. Now, of course, whenever you're using the radial gaze timer, make sure you click to disable it, otherwise it will cause all sorts of problems, or well, not really cause problems, it'll just appear where you don't want it to appear. The radial progress is always, as always, is the image, the round red image that we made. And then, of course, the stuff to do being the object where the scripts are kept, which is the hitbox, because the hitbox contains the radial gaze timer and the node master. Excellent. And the other thing we're going to need here is an event trigger. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill these up too. The Pito is the ball. The holder we haven't created yet. We don't want it to be the hitbox. So all the nodes though? All the nodes. That's it. Right there, all the nodes. Let's also go back to my hands. And my hands, all the nodes for my hands is still going to be all the nodes. Okay, because that's important. All right, so let's go back to the hitbox. So it's got radial gaze timer, it's got the node master script, it's got the event trigger. It also does need a box collider. Don't know why I forgot that. Should have been the very first thing I added. All right, so we've got that. And the event trigger, so what we want to do is do our pointer enter and our pointer exit, because those are the conditions at which things are noticed. So the very first thing we want to do is access the hitbox to be able to turn that object on. So we're going to drag my hitbox into the event triggers. The hitbox, the hitbox, the hitbox. There we go. And radial gaze timer, bool enabled. Make sure that is checked so that it does enable it. Over here, we want to reset with the resetinator, and right here we want to disable. There we go. Excellent. All right, that's pretty good. The box collider, the radial gaze timer, the node master, the event trigger. Okay, so now we actually have something that will turn on. It'll give us the ability to put something somewhere, but we can't really see. I mean, we can see right here that we have something, but we can't actually see right here what we've got. So we are going to simulate a I don't know, just a place to be. So we're going to call this actual node locations. Okay, and then zero out those transforms as appropriate. There we go. And add another item inside of the actual node locations, and we're going to call this one node location 1. Okay, and actually we don't need to put the 1 in there. Let's just call it node location, because later on we're going to be duplicating these, and then they'll have parentheses and a number. So go back to actual node locations, and then right click and create a cube. Excellent. You guys are doing so great. This cube, again, is our pedestal like we had in the last video, but instead of attaching all of the scripts to the pedestal, I did not spell that right. P-E-D-E-S-T-A-L. There we go. Pedestal. Now, we don't really need to do anything to these three, okay? The only reason these three exist, well, is basically this exists to house these two, and these, and you know, keep things a little bit cleaner inside the hierarchy. It's not really necessary. The node location, obviously, is where we want the object to go, so let's go right over here to hitbox. So you remember how we left the holder empty. That's because node location is where we want the holder to be. We don't want the holder to be in the hitbox or anything, because we're going to turn all the nodes on or off. That's what we did in the script there by doing the set active true and then set active false. So I think that's pretty good. Of course, since we're going to be activating and deactivating, this needs to start deactivated. All right, let's go through everything and see what we've got here. So as it stands, everything looks pretty good. We've got our hitbox that has our collider, gaze timer, node master, and event trigger, and we have a place to put everything once it gets there. Our hands are all updated, so all the nodes are known that this is what we're going to be toggling on and off. There we go, all the nodes. Excellent. Now, the last thing that we need to do is go into the radial gaze timer and flesh this out, so that way we can not only put the ball in our hands, but also put the ball into, or onto, I guess, a node. So the stuff to do, .get component, the node master on the nodes. All right, parentheses, semicolon. Now, we can't just do this right here. This is kind of a terrible idea. What we need to do is create a if statement that will encapsulate all this. So what we're going to do is come up here to the top, and we're going to create a string, public string, which is kind of work like a tag, I guess. I'm not really good with tags yet. The magic word. But I know how to use a string, so we'll do that. All right, the magic word. The magic word is important, because then you can set the magic word whenever you have a different object, and I will show you how to do that. So if the magic word is equal to, what do we want to call this? Hand. If it's equal to hand, then we want to run the component in my hands. That's the subroutine we want to run. Okay, so we're gonna put this in our brackets. Oops, there we go. Excellent. Now, right underneath this, we want to do else if, and the magic word is equal to node, then we want to run on the nodes. Okay, so far so good. And close this off. Excellent, save. Okay, so now we need to go and assign hand and node to whatever magic word is placed on wherever it's at. So go ahead and hit save, save all. And of course, this isn't always practical, but for this particular example, this is what we're doing. I mean, we really want to be able to separate this radial gaze timer a lot further out, but I felt the need to put these conditions in here because it just made a little bit more sense at the time. Eventually, I'd like to get past this, but for now, it should work. So we've got that saved. We've got everything all lined out. The nodes will turn on and off the way that they're supposed to. The hitbox will do what it needs to do. The radial gaze timers are off. Excellent. All right, let's test. Let's test this out. Oh yes, wait a second. The pedestal and the node location. Before we do this, I want to modify the pedestal and the node location. First of all, I want to take the pedestal and bring it down to about 0.2 on the z-axis. That makes it a nice little tile there. But the node location, if we leave the node location where it's at, the problem that we're going to have is that the ball is going to snap to the center of this tile, and that's not what we want. We want it to be kind of in front of it so that it looks kind of nice, I guess you could say. So in order to do this, let's go to Add Component, yes, a Box Collider. And we're not going to keep the Box Collider, we're going to use the Box Collider's green little transform widget, and we're going to move it forward so that we can see that the transform is nice and politely in front of this box. Now, conversely, we could have typed in negative 0.65, but now we have like this visual confirmation, so that's always good. All right, go ahead and delete that Box Collider now because we only needed it to see where we were moving our transform. Okay, so before we actually test this out, we need to say some magic words. All right, so let's go to My Hands, where the radial gaze timer now has a magic word. Obviously, the magic word is going to be hand. Very good. And then we come down to the hitbox, and we look at our radial gaze timer, and now that magic word is going to be node. Excellent. Save. All right, let's test this out and see what we've got. Excellent, and excellent. Okay, so now we have the node is on there. We can't activate that node again, but we can sure activate the ball, and boom. Okay, so you see this flickering right here? The ball should be going right back to your hand, but the reason it's not is because there is a timer issue. So go into your script here, under the radial gaze timer. Right here underneath this stuff to do, get component, the node master on the nodes. Technically, we want to do something more like this. Resetinator. Okay, and of course resetinator is this this little subroutine right here. Okay, and that will zero out the timer, and by doing so, it will allow us to transform the ball to our hand. Okay, there we go. All right, so okay, so now we can see this is going back and forth, and that's good. All right, now we need to test to make sure this actually works. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the hitbox, we are going to duplicate it, and we're going to go to node location and duplicate it, and we're going to go to the pedestal and duplicate that. Now we're going to select the hitbox, hold down the control button, and node location 1 and the pedestal 1. We are going to come over here, and we are going to move all of them over here. Okay. Okay, so now we have two different locations. Now, if we were going to test this out, this wouldn't work perfectly right away. And the reason for that is because we now have two different locations that we're actually talking about. We have the location that we want for the original hitbox, and then we have a location that we're going to want for the second hitbox. And it can't be the same location, because if it was the same location, it literally would be right back where we started. So we're going to take this node location parentheses 1 and put that in there. Okay? So it already updated the hitbox because it is the hitbox, but it didn't automatically update this because, well, nobody told it to. So now let's go ahead and try that. Okay, grab the object, hold it, and put it here. Grab it, and now put it here. Grab it, and now put it here. Excellent. Good job, guys. I knew you could do it. Well, this video has got a little long in the tooth. I apologize that it is such a long tutorial, but I feel like I couldn't really have broken this up uh, into smaller pieces and really did a good job with it. I mean, it kind of all needed to happen all at once. So I thank you for watching. I thank you for trying all these out, and definitely thank you to all of my new subscribers and viewers. I reached 127 subscribers and 8,000 lifetime views. So very shortly, I should reach my 10,000 views monetization barrier and crush it. Excellent. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you very much. We can further demonstrate this by adding more nodes. You can just add as many nodes as you want, but you got to make sure that you always update the location of where you want those things to go. Okay, that's it. On our next video, we are going to solve the problem of trying to pick up one object or the other. Because, yeah, if we duplicate this ball right here uh, and try to pick up one or the other, we're only going to pick up one ball. So that will be a very fun thing to tackle in the future. So you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode.